I I'm not the best dad. I yelled at them this morning.
Schooled by the Kids, a lesson in creative thinking with Andrew Chen. Read by Eugene Can. Children enter a world without restriction. Their curiosity guides them through daily life, poking, prodding, grabbing. But as they begin to mature, inhibitions and parameters set in. The rules of society become a point of reference, something that you're supposed to align with. With age comes maturity, and we become socialized, but we also become shackled. Perception, what others think. This exerts an invisible force on what you do and how you behave. You lose a sense of experimentation and act as if someone's over your shoulder. Some embrace it, others are crippled by it. Children, devoid of these pressures, have it best until they grow up. We connected with Andrew Chen, co-founder of 316 and part owner of Self Edge, but for the purpose of this story, father to 5-year-old Logan and 4-year-old Hunter. Despite running a full-fledged denim empire, Andrew takes time out to spend it with his boys. Lots of time. His social media is rife with imagery and Snapchat stories of the boys. There's no lack of interesting and tangible experiences for Hunter and Logan. We connected with Andrew to hear his thoughts on how children approach creativity. How does technology potentially influence the present and the future?
Kids are wired to express themselves creatively. Uh, just from some of the things we talked about before, being young and a lack of inhibitions, a lack of manners, a lack of knowing what's appropriate or reasonable. um, they don't face some of the challenges that we as adults face, where we don't want to get into something unless we think we're going to be good at it, or we think that we can impress someone else with it.
Yeah.
Um, and those things come later on in life. So for as long as they're able to,
They should embrace that.
yeah, before society just closes down and clamps down and stifles.
In the digital age, adults have witnessed firsthand the addictive properties of it. Children, despite what you might think, find engagement in many different places.
And I'm actually very impressed with her patience with them. There are times when it's a rainy day and we're at home, and she'll take the time to kind of ask them what they want to do or think of some kind of art project. So for this past year, every time there was a major holiday, we just broke out some construction paper and tried to, cut out different kinds of characters that relate to the holiday, and just kind of decorate our front door. And something like that keeps them so engaged, and to me is way better than just pulling up YouTube, which they absolutely love.
Toys in themselves can be reinvented thanks to their imagination. Toy companies, however, recognize how easily influenced children may be. To a fault, Andrew is weary of providing too much of this to his kids.
Trying to keep that away from them because, I mean, you know how well commercials worked when you were a child. When you saw those, whatever it was on TV, you just got super fixated on it, and you wouldn't stop bothering your parents for it. And in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think they need any more toys. They have a lot of toys, and I've gone over to friends' houses that have they have 10 times the amount of toys, and they're really, if you leave them to it, they're really happy with the ones that they have, and I don't think they need any more. They have such a broad imagination. Every kid does, that they can think of new scenarios to put their toys into and play with them, and it's fine. But you get into the zone of, if they're being sold to, then of course they're going to want more stuff.
Andrew then proceeds to drop some simple parenting insight. Children, in their curious state, can be satisfied through experiences.
So you can't really say for sure what it'll do. I do think that there's a lot out there for my boys to enjoy. And I also notice that when we make the effort to take them out to do things, they're never asking for a TV. It's if they're sitting around and there's nothing else for them to do, then they start complaining that they're bored. And so if we keep them active and we provide them with fun experiences, then they're never really asking for technology.
But despite the aforementioned lack of boundaries, it's not quite as straightforward. Kids do have limitations. Their parents.
I don't know. Some people might call me a harsh, a harsh parent. My wife says that I'm a little rough on them sometimes, but As far as I've been able to figure out over these past 5 years, I really aim for moderation, and that's probably something that I need to apply to myself and learn more about. As I consume so voraciously, right? I
Yeah.
don't need to have moderation because I'm an adult. I do what I like.
Yeah. You're a
Um,
grown ass man.
yeah, but like for some reason, I expect that of them as children because I think that that's good for them to have limits. And I cannot count the number of times he's walked up to me and said, "Daddy, put down the phone."
Yeah.
And that's always
So
a
he
very
recognizes it.
yeah, absolutely. It's a very sobering moment
Yeah.
when he says that, because he is telling me, "I notice that you are not engaged right now."
Yeah.
A parent's role is to guide. Imposing hard restrictions can be stifling, especially at such an important part of childhood where they're always exploring. Adults are sometimes detrimentally hard-headed. Children are much more open to trying things out.
They don't seem as set in their ways as I am as a as an older
Yeah.
person, right? I mean, for Logan, he could tell me, "I don't want to do this," and then experience it, enjoy it, and turn around the next week and say, "Hey, I'm looking forward to it." And as an adult, I think that when it comes to many things in life, we're a bit more hard headed, and so that's something that I can learn from them. Is
Yeah.
if the results yield a different outcome than what they originally had in their very limited experience,
Yeah.
they're willing to change their mind.
They also take on a more honest approach to seeing and communicating how they feel.
And then just their openness to observe things, and speak them
Yeah.
very openly. And we see that whenever we
Do
go
you
to
feel they
museums.
learn very quickly in regards to not just like skills, like physical skills, but do you see them maturing mentally?
I think every parent can attest to the fact that it's very, very exciting to watch kids develop because they move at a much faster pace than we as adults do.
There's more to what children can teach their older counterparts. Andrew recounts how museum visits are redefined with his children. That sense of honesty can make something that's often elevated and pretentious more enjoyable based on a simple emotional response.
So I learn a lot going with them as well. There'll be times where they'll see something in a painting that I'd totally glossed over, because I wasn't looking at the piece as a whole. And then you ask them, "Well, what else do you see, or what do you like about it? Do you like it?" And that very simple question of "Do you like it?" has been so freeing for me to be able to enjoy art, again at a very basic level, because art should move you.
What are some typical answers you'll get from them?
I mean, for the first round that we go through is just observational. What do you see in this? What's it made out of? Sometimes they just say yes, and then at that point, I'll ask them why they like it,
And the answer, adults often have trouble giving.
or I don't know. And I think that that's an acceptable answer.
The lessons that children teach us go further. For adults, cultural expectations loom over our head. It's further compounded by social media's unrealistic expectations. We realize for children that they disregard this. And in turn, that's a great creative asset. Kids act without outside implications.
I'm going to just do this and not worry what that person thinks.
Yeah, not only worrying what that person thinks, but I think a lot of times we don't do things because we fear that we're not going to be good at it. Never mind the fact that it takes time to be good at anything. And I've experienced this personally as an adult with limited time on your hands, and just you don't have the same resources to pursue different opportunities or ventures or creative endeavors, whatever. As it stands, there are things on my plate which I would love to be better at. Um, and to a certain extent, I think that that's good for you as a creative to not be good at certain things, and continue to pursue it, because I don't know, there's this tension or this frustration that comes out of not being good at something but still wanting to improve at it.
As we get older, curiosity is hindered by other pressures. We try our best to control perception. Every day, children access new experiences, and they lack social pressure. Adults face the opposite. They're constantly under a comparative microscope.
Putting yourself in a situation where you're unfamiliar with, trying to solve a problem you don't know the answer to is incredibly rewarding, because you take away, if you can solve it, then you take away a new solution or a new way of solving a problem you can apply to something else. Likewise, if you fail, there's still a lesson to be learned, right? It's like an experiment.
Yeah, but I think as adults we overlook the benefit that comes from what you just talked about. And it's just if I can't get the results that I want, and because everything is so easily shareable, there's definitely a pressure to compare yourself and feel like, man, what took somebody, I don't know, maybe 10 years to get to, why can't I produce at a similar level?
Embarrassment is a really strong trait or a really strong reaction to something. And I think a lot of times we try to minimize that. And how do you get people to just do things for the sake of doing things from a kid's perspective?